We're going to take some of the basic things that we did in After Effects last time, those principles, those ideas, and use them in a different way to be able to create sort of a simple, nice little animation. So I'm going to take some graphics from the web. Unsplash is one of my favorite places to grab nice images from. They've got some great images that are really high quality. Every Pixel is another pretty great one. So either of these I'd recommend. There are other ones out there too that you can check out, but I'm going to use Unsplash. So I'm going to grab this picture because it's a nice, easy, clear edge, I think. Will be easy to cut with. So this will be one. This is from NASA, right? So that makes it pretty easy to use. And actually we can see a lot of other great images here, so I'll probably take some other images from NASA as well. But I'm going to start with this one. I'll click the download button. That saves it. I also want sort of a nice space scene. I think I'm going to go with this one. So if I click here, we can see the picture itself. So I'll download this one. Everything from Unsplash is completely free to use. Not all the sites are that way. Sometimes you need to find out, like, is it free only for educational use? Is it free for anybody? Is it free as long as you're not profiting off of it? It varies from different ones to different ones. So, and then maybe this moon. No, I don't want to deal with the darkness. Well, no, I think that'd be interesting. Okay, I'll grab the moon. Oh, look, it's another NASA one. And I think it would be cool to have an astronaut, but I'm not gonna. Ooh, well, there's an astronaut. Let's pretend I'm gonna use him. I would use him, but I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time going over this. So the next thing I would do, I would take these photos into Photoshop and cut them out. Our machines in the lab right now don't have Photoshop installed, and I don't want to wait any longer to get the software installed because we've waited plenty for software to be installed. So I'm just going to use one of the free online tools that we used earlier, and I don't remember the name, so if I type this in, this was the one. There are other ones. It doesn't really matter which one you use, as long as you're comfortable with it. So I'm going to open. If I go to downloads, that should be where they saved. So I think this was that first one. Right, so now I want just the globe. I don't want the space behind it. So different ways to do this. For this shape, having that nice curve, I think the pen tool is the easiest to use. I hope this works the way that it does in Photoshop. Oh, not really, but I think I can make this work. Okay, so if I go there, I've got that nice curve, right? Click here, go back up here. Okay, I know that's not how not how you expect it to look, but it's okay. All right, I've got this shape layer. I think I can grab the magic wand to click it. There we go. Right, now I can delete the shape layer. I've got that selection still, right, with the curve that I wanted. But I can click this mask. Now I've got just the planets. Now I can download this, export this. I'm going to export it as a PNG because PNG supports transparency. Keep in mind JPEG does not, so if I did this, I would now have a white background, and that would basically undo what I did. Right, so PNG, high quality, supports transparency. Yeah, that's fine. Save. Okay. So now it's probably the same file name, but with .png on the end. And I also want the other NASA image, the moon, and I want to cut it out as well. The celestial shot, this one, let's see if I can switch this so you can see what I'm talking about. This one I don't want to cut up because I'm going to have that as the background, and I'm going to have the two other elements slightly move a little bit. And then if I had an astronaut, the astronaut would move too, but I don't have one. That's fine. All right, I'm going to switch this back to list so that way I can have it ordered by download date. So here is the moon. And I'm going to use the ellipse tool. And I need to start the ellipse tool where this line intersects with this line. That's a little bit hard to visualize exactly where it is, and I'll probably mess it up without some tools, so I'll use some rulers. Drag out a ruler this way, drag out a ruler that way. Now I can start this right where they intersect. And if I hold shift, it'll make a perfect circle. I can just drag this to wherever the moon goes. And cool enough, there's actually some of the moon missing. So I do that, and then no. How do I want to do this? I actually made it a little too big. Let's do canvas size. We'll click that one so that way it goes out to the right. And we need to make this a little bit bigger. So maybe, oh, and I need to turn that off. Oh, it is already. Okay. We'll make this 3800 because that should be more than enough. There we go. Now I can mask this. Okay. And I can paint with black this extra area here. Oh, that is not painting. Oh, it's because I'm on the mask. That's okay. Click on the actual image itself instead of the mask. I can color that in. There we go. I've got the rest of the moon. Okay, that's close enough. There's still a little, it's fine. I don't care. It's close enough. All right, and now I can also save this. I'm doing this rather fast. It's not that, this part's not that important. I mean, it is, but it's not, right? But this isn't the focus. I'm just trying to get a few images that have transparency. You could download images that already have transparency from Google. That would be fine too, as long as they're really transparent. Sometimes when you look up transparent images, you find non-transparent images that have the transparent texture, and that's not useful. All right, so I'm gonna close this because I'm done with that. And now I'm going to open After Effects. So Command Space to search. Here's After Effects. All right, it's just being slow. I'm impatient. I'm gonna open a new Finder window because this will be my downloads folder that has the graphics that I just made. All right, so I'm going to do new composition. That's fine. I'm not going to worry about the size because it's just to give you an idea. So I've got my three files here. I'm going to drag this one in first, the background. And there it is. It is much too large, so I want to scale it down. Notice when I grab the handles that it can get wonky, so I want to hold shift to lock the proportions, and then I can kind of see how big I want it. Now I think I actually want it to be rotated. I think I want it to be vertical. So that way it can sort of pan down. So I'm going to actually go ahead and transform this. We'll do the rotation here. Let me zoom in so you can actually see what I'm doing. Change this to 90. Okay, that didn't work. Change this to 90. There we go. All right. Make my whole thing a little bit smaller, just so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing, hopefully. Okay, so I've got the thing I drug in. I rotated it here inside of the transform options. We talked a little bit about those last time, right? Now I'm going to scale it back up a little bit so that way it actually covers the edge of my screen. Did I get all of it? I did. Okay. All right, that's good enough. It actually might be a little bit more, but I'd rather have it be a little bit more than a little bit less. Next, I'm going to add in this. All right, so we can add that in. Now notice I've got two different things, right? They each have their own separate transforms, right? So these are like the layers that we were talking about before, right? Like After Effects is basically Photoshop, but with video. Photoshop, but with video. So I will have that kind of there, and maybe down a little bit. Yeah, I think this would have been better in a vertical or a square. A square canvas probably would have been good. That's all right. Okay, I think the opacity on this is a little bit high. Can I change that? I can right here. So let's darken that a little bit. That looks a little bit better. It was just too bright. All right. And now we'll add in the moon, which is a huge moon. So holding shift will scale that down as well. I'm using Command plus and Command minus to very quickly jump in and out of zooming in and out. So if you're like, how is he doing that so fast? Command plus, Command minus. All right, that background is still a little too bright, I think, which is unfortunate because I I don't want to lose all the color, but I don't really want to take it into Photoshop either. Well, it's fine. Whatever. Alright. So, I've got 3 different elements, right? And now I can sort of play with these elements. You are a very bright moon. Anyway, the point is, playing with those same things that we played with last time, the scale and some of those things, I can take these, right, and I can move where they're located. Oh, hello. Okay, and I can move this, right? And I could start to kind of move things around a little bit, right? So I can say that maybe after 10 seconds, which is actually a very long time, these things have moved, right? So we've got, let's go back here. Let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to start this maybe way like there-ish, and I'll start this one kind of there-ish, and maybe I don't want the moon in at all. Alright, so all of that looks good, and oh, right, I need to actually tell it to remember that position, so I'm going to go ahead and click this little stopwatch, right? Now we can see the little diamond there, and I need to do it to the other ones, because I didn't do it for them either. And of course, you know, we also talked last time about hotkeys, right? You could use those as well. Either way works, right? If I'm already moving the position over here, though, it might be just as easy to do it here. Right, so now we've got this part, and I want to, which one is this? The background. And I want to move it down, right? So I just keep, oh, I ran out of space. Sometimes you might have to grab it again if you're scrubbing through it. That looks pretty good. And you can see it automatically added the other one there, just like it did in the previous video when we were using the hotkeys. So whether you use the hotkey or the stopwatch, doesn't matter. And we can see here if we scrub through the timeline that we can see that movement, right? So easy enough. All right, now I need to do the same thing with this, right? So again, I'll drag this to where I want it to be. And we can see the little diamond appears there automatically as well. And then, of course, lastly, the moon. Where do I want the moon to be? Alright, so now if we drag the timeline header all the way back, and I can collapse those. Let's zoom in a little bit, Command plus, ooh, not that much, and we can just make sure that it works and that we're okay with how it goes. That's actually fairly fast. That background is moving way faster than I expected. Even though 10 seconds is kind of a long time, it covered a lot of ground, so I probably want to slow that down. But you get the idea, right? You can see it worked, right? So instead, let's go back to this background and this position here. All right, maybe I start more kind of here-ish. It's already most of the way there. And then by the time it's here, maybe it's not quite so far. And it's a much smaller stretch. Does this feel more natural now? Yeah, ish. Actually, it's a little bit backwards because what this is, what you're seeing is you're seeing parallax, okay? And what that means is that one object moves faster than a different, or we perceive one object moving faster than a different object because of how close one object is to us versus the other. Now, this Earth is not moving very fast, and the background is actually moving faster, and that is backwards because the closer object should actually appear to move faster in relation to where we are versus the farther away object. So, yeah, that's cool. It is what it is. So the moon is actually a little bit closer to us than the Earth according to the speed at which these are moving, because that Earth moves barely any at all. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's see, where's this moon? Alright. We can have the moon start much closer down, so now it has a much smaller track. And let's try it again. That's better-ish. The moon should probably still move a little bit slower in contrast to the Earth, but hopefully you get the idea. Okay, so when we looked at that, I don't know if you really noticed, maybe not, but everything moves at sort of the same rate. Now it's pretty slow, so it may not be too noticeable, but the sort of movement typically feels sort of unnatural, right? Typically things don't just like stop altogether and start altogether. There's typically a little bit of like easing, we call it easing, where there's a little bit of acceleration. So these right now are just flat, straight, linear, there we go, that's the term, linear motion paths, motion graphs, however you want to think about it. If I right click on this, or if I hold control and click, or control and click, you can see keyframe assistant, and we've got these easing in here, right? This is actually sort of what I'm talking about. There's ease in, so that's kind of where like how it starts, and ease out, and that's that idea of like accelerating and slowing down, not just an abrupt stop. There's also just easy ease, and the hotkey for that is F9, and this is what we want to look at. So now that I've clicked that, you can see that this has changed, right? And now that the icon has changed, I can click this, and this shows me the graph of that movement. So now if I play it, let's see, what am I on? I'm on the moon. I don't know if you'll be able to see the moon as much because it starts off the screen. You see how it slows down a little bit? It's not as abrupt, whereas the other ones were much more abrupt, right? So this is easing, and it is preferable. I'm going to click that again to get out of it because I want these to do the same thing. I want this to also be easy ease, and the same thing for this one. I'll just make it on all of them real fast, and then you can see how it affects them. So now if I play all of them, see how it slows down at the end? It's not that abrupt stop, it feels more natural, right? Now, the other thing is, even though it had the idea, we didn't do just ease out, right? It was just easy ease in general, right? This first one remained the same, so this first one is still linear. So let's also tell this first one to ease, right? So I'll do the same thing on all of these. Easy ease, right? And now you should see it also accelerate, start a little bit slower, and that should also feel more natural. It doesn't go as fast at the start. It just has a little bit more of a natural feel to it. Now the whole thing still feels a little unnatural, right? But hopefully you get the idea of how you could use this with animation. This could also be like, let's say that you have a scene where a car is driving, right? And you might have things in the background, like maybe some mountains are really far away that are moving really, really slow, and you might have some trees that are a little bit closer background, but not far background, that are moving a little bit faster. And then you might have the road, right, which is moving even faster, and you might have other cars that are going by in the opposite direction that are moving, quite a bit faster. So this is how you could do that. You could use that just with these. You don't have to draw each frame or drag that frame a little bit by little bit. You can just use this sort of movement with those illustrations, right? And you could also have a background sky that doesn't move at all, right? My background here, I have it moving because I thought it would be nice to have it move, but you don't have to. Now, in addition to just that slight easing, you can also go into this graph editor here, right? This curve represents that movement. It represents starting slow and then going a little bit faster. Now, I can modify it myself if I want to, but I can't just like grab and start. Well, I sort of can, but it doesn't do exactly what I want, right? It's a little, it lets me modify the position, but the curve is still sort of automated. So Command Z to undo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that I want to separate the X from the Y, and then I'll get tools, I'll get methods to be able to modify it. So I click this, right? Now we can see that my nice little Bezier curve is gone, right? So once again, it's just linear. But that's fine, because now when I click, if I do audio Bezier right there, right? Now we can see we've got this little handle, right? And I can pull this handle, and I can make it go the way that I want, and now I can do some weird some weird things with this if I want to, right? So the way that I did this now is a little ridiculous. Okay, so let me explain what's going on. Here is one of the positions, right? This is the starting Y position, this is the ending Y position, and this is where the moon will be on the Y position, right? So it's let's see how to put this. This is 0 pixels. It's the top of here, right? And this is 1,000 pixels, which I guess is the bottom. I don't know how big I made this. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess so. So this is where the moon will be at which seconds on this y-axis. So because it actually goes past the ending point, that means it actually goes past the ending point. So you can do some cool and also some weird things with this. So we get sort of a yo-yo effect, which is ridiculous, but it's a different technique, right? So you could create some interesting surreal movements playing with this sort of curve editor, with this graph editor, right? And from here, let's see, I pulled that over, right? I could even change the starting position there, right? So now it starts there. We can make it go way down that way and make it go way up this way, and you can just do some really weird things with this if you want, right? So that can be kind of fun. Now notice that the scale changed. Right now we don't see 1,000, we see 5,000, and now it's gotten a little bit weird. So sometimes the graph editor gets a little weird, right? So you can make this a little bit larger if you need to, and you've got some different things here to better be able to sort of see where things are. It's trying to make sure that I don't lose the handles, right? Because if I drag it way up there, then to be able to grab that handle again, I have to be able to see it. So that's why the scale changes, to make sure that I can always see and grab that handle. So as I bring it back down, right now the scale gets smaller. So you can play with that. If I want additional points, keep in mind that these 2 points are the ones that we saw here. So if I want additional points, that means that I need to go back on my timeline. There we go. There we go. Now that I've broken it, I can click this button there, and that will do that. So now if I click here, now I've got an additional point with additional handles, right? And so that can allow you to do some really weird things. Now notice I can't drag it past this line, because keep in mind that while this part of the graph represents position, let me rephrase that. While the vertical part of the graph represents the vertical positioning on here, right? The horizontal axis is time. So I can't make it go past that, because then that would be like it goes backwards in time. It'd be in like 2 different places at the same point at that second. So it is what it is. Now I chose to do the y-axis, right, for my graph, and that just happens to correspond exactly with the y-axis on this graph. But if I modify this part, keep in mind here that now I'm modifying the x-axis on here, which is not this position here, this position, right? Like this spot here going down does not represent going down in here. This spot here represents going to the left, right? And as it goes this way, that represents going, as it goes back up, that represents going to the right. So visualizing and understanding how it works on the y-axis is easier first than dealing with the x-axis. So, you know, it is what it is. But you can play with that and make something interesting, right? And see what happens.